Whenever you guys in the audience would like to interject on something, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll invite you up onto the stage and get you guys talking. Um, but we're going to go ahead and kick off today's discussion on victim mentality. Victim mentality. Um, to kind of set the ground, I'm going to go ahead and give the definition for what victim mentality is. Right? Victim mentality is defined as a defensive or paranoid attitude based on the beliefs that one is a victim of the negative actions of others, even in the face of contrary evidence of such circumstances. That is the general definition that is accepted for it. But as many of you guys know, victim mentality has made its way into a lot of political discussions. Um, it's been used as a kind of a catch-all phrase for many different things on left media and right media. In politics, victim mentality is usually in reference to a dynamic in which political actors or groups frame themselves as the target of oppression, often to gain political advantage or to mobilize supporters. Right? So, a big one that we see nowadays is like feminism, for example. A lot of modern feminists still believe that they don't have the same rights as men do, despite quite the contrary, and even to some degrees, them having more privileges than men do. A great example I can give off the top of my head is in the Marines. Women's physical fitness scores versus men's physical fitness scores are night and day. I knew a female Marine who had gotten a time that was like a second class combat fitness test. Um, and she was complaining about it. I just looked her dead in the eyes. I was like, dude, you realize if I would have gotten that fucking time, I would have failed, right? Just straight out, like, we could be looking at chapter paperwork and even processing out, depending on the severity.
I mean, on that, I'd fully agree. And I think it's important to remember the different waves of feminism. Originally back in the 1960s, and you start getting into women's suffrage, it was about being literally equal. That's what it was. It wasn't wanting more. It wasn't wanting more access or having better things than men. It was just a matter of I wanted to have the right to vote. Right. I want to be able to make my own decision. Now you have, third, fourth, and what I would even call fifth wave feminism, which is what a lot of people consider like the eradication of men, the men are all trash movement, um, where it's now become a situation of how do we completely victimize ourselves and make men the problem to all of us, like, and that becomes the ultimate blame shift, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we see it all over the place. A really good place to see like this kind of mentality in action. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the Whatever podcast, like exclusively does content based off of like the dating scene and women's behaviors versus men's behaviors, and it's insane the amount of women that just victimize themselves while also trying to make sure that men are put under their boot heel at the same time. It's insane. The victim
Uh,
mentality has really like warped these people's perception of reality and how things actually are.
Yeah, I really like the phrase "do as I say, not as I do," because that tends to be the pattern that I see. At least what I see in most modern women, especially the younger generation of women. The massive political divide that we have is, I want to be a hoe and sleep around and do all the different things, but men, if you do that, you're trash, you're horrible. you're disgusting, but it's okay for women to sell their bodies online through OnlyFans.
Exactly. And it's so strange the dynamic people like women especially have with like the pornographic industry because on one hand they're fighting it and saying like it's evil, and I don't disagree. I think the pornographic industry is horrible. I think humanity as a whole would be much better off if we didn't just have access to being able to see all these naked people all the time. I mean, the studies alone show that they're absolutely detrimental to the human race as a whole.
Oh, fully agree. What's funny is though is what I don't hear a lot of people talk about is the solution to that. Now I know that's a little off subject in terms of victim mentality, but that's a big one that I hear people talk about is, well, there's this issue with pornography and men not wanting women and women not wanting men. How do we fix it?
I think uh, I think within like the last year or two, there was an interesting step taken forward to trying to assist in fixing it, where they kind of, in a roundabout way, banned certain pornographic sites from the internet in certain states. I mean, you can still go to the websites, but the websites themselves will block your access based off of your region and the state that
Hmm.
you're in. Um,
Yeah, I know. For example, Idaho. So I'm from North Idaho, and and I'll share that I was definitely one of the gooners who was addicted to porn for a while, and I had to break that. And it was very difficult. But what I'll also share is, in the state of Idaho, they made an initiative where they're going to require that these websites have genuine age verification. And the reaction from the porn industry has been shocking to me. They would rather ban their own website and avoid getting any money than just adding age verification, which to me tells me that it's not about age. They want kids addicted to it.
I mean, that's how you keep your customers, dude. You get them while they're young. Why do you think Got
Hmm.
Milk was so popular? I mean, kids all over the 80s and 90s watching ads about people's arms falling off because they weren't drinking enough milk, and now fucking milk everywhere, dude. I
You
mean,
know,
it's
it's
not quite the
also
same, but
to
there's
me, it's also a
comparisons.
political tactic because if you look at it in a political light, you can almost view it as a type of lobbying. Now, it's not lobbying in the sense of money, but it's lobbying in the sense of people. How do you get people to vote for porn? Well, you cut them off of it. You cut all the addicts off of it. So to me, what I see happening in Idaho is you have, Pornhub, right?
Hmm.
One of the largest pornographic industries in the world, and the funniest part about it is Idaho goes, "Hey, you need to have a proven way to verify." And their answer was, "Well, we're just going to ban it until your people vote that it's okay again." Like,
Yeah.
it's just horrible. It's horrible what it does to you.
It's crazy though, because no such thing exists for like OnlyFans. Even though OnlyFans is primarily a pornographic site now, that's like what 99% of their um what did you call what would you call it? Their accounts on their site are is just women selling their nudes
Well, and men
and
too.
men
And
too.
that's
Yeah.
that's one area I think it talked about is there's a lot of men out there on these websites as well that are cross-dressing, things like that, just to get attention and to get views, or doing things that are completely abstract. Because I think it's important to remember that porn addiction doesn't start out as just, oh, you only like one type of, very vanilla stuff. When you become addicted to it, you have to get more and more. It's just like any other drug. So what you get is people start out with, relatively what would be considered vanilla things, and they end up turning to things like nasty, nasty fetishes. You start seeing people on these websites that are just doing the most appalling and degenerate things.
Yeah. I think that definitely leads into some of the major issues we're seeing um, around the country right now, especially with mental health, depression, and anxiety. People feel more cozy sitting at home, just jerking off to different videos on the internet, opposed to actually going out and starting a conversation and getting into a relationship, which kind of also feeds back into how men and women are in the dating scene today, which is just absolutely vile overall.
Mhm.
But
But I think it ties into the victim mentality as well, though, because you know when you look at these gooners, a lot of the time their answer is, "Oh, well, I can't find a woman. Well, I can't do this. I can't do that." And a lot of it, I think, is actually laziness to an extent.
yeah,
It's not wanting to go out and do the work, you know, and pick somebody. You know, you're basically, you know, when you're dating and you're looking for someone, you're interviewing them. That's what you're doing. You're interviewing a potential lifelong business partner in a sense. You got to think about it that way. You know, are you going to go into some, you know, business with somebody who is psychologically unwell? And a lot of men just don't want to do that. They want to be able to, you know, especially my generation. This is an area where I get a lot of guys that get mad at me with this whole thing. Is you guys are playing the victim card a lot of the time us men are saying, "Oh, I can't get a girl because they're all like this," and we generalize all women. There's great women out there. It's just, you know, they're not as common, and you got to do the damn work to find them. You're not going to go to a bar and expect to find a queen. It's just not going to happen.
yeah. I mean, there's a chance, but not the best chance. You're definitely not going to find them at the club.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely a part of that where it's, you know, we definitely, on both sides of the way, play the victim card far too often. And I think we just need to get a little bit disciplined and be willing to get a little bit uncomfortable and do the work.
Well, victim mentality is definitely pushing back. What's it called? Progress towards any real, um, well, progress or solutions. Hold on, I'm trying to process some information right now. There's both sides of the fence. People are playing the victim on certain issues, and instead of it being something that actually helps progress um, towards finding solutions, it's basically a fucked up game of kick the can down the road. But it's
Yep.
also kind of it's kind of difficult to put into words, but all it does is bring attention to something and then manipulate people into seeing it only a certain way and then feeling sorry for them. Or it has the opposite effect and it doesn't make you feel sorry for them and it makes you just angry and it divides people more. Victim mentality doesn't fix any of the issues that people bring up constantly, it just makes them worse,
Yep.
especially when you don't bring any real solutions to the table.
Well, and I think, you know, I know this might be a little sensitive for some people because of who he is, but one of the things that I know was a very hot take from Charlie Kirk was that empathy is a word we shouldn't use. And after reading about it and really reading about what empathy is, I've come to the same conclusion that the vast majority of people who say they're being empathetic and that they're trying to put themselves in other people's shoes, it's not really what they're doing. There's because they're not going out and doing the work and providing solutions. They're just sympathizing with it. They're saying, "Yeah, I see your pain and it sucks," you know, but they're not doing anything about it. Truly empathize with something that involves action, you know, and involves putting yourself in a position to either physically live it out or help it and fix it.
Yeah. I mean, DEI, or is it? Yeah, it's DEI. Um, is one of those major things that came about um, as a potential solution to solve certain inequalities that used to exist in colleges, the workplace, and all these other things. But if anything, it's just been a massive step backwards. I mean, having a company be forced to hire people based off their sexuality, their skin color, religion, physical ability. I mean, it does nothing to actually progress anything. You know, having two people that are of the same standing, and instead of going based off of like how the interview went, or like the more minute details, they're going off of, oh, this person's Jewish. We don't have very many Jewish people working at our company. Let's hire him. Or this person's Muslim. We don't have any Muslims working here currently. We'll hire them. Or this person's gay or black or female. We'll hire them purely based off of that merit, opposed to the finer details, and how the person can be more applicable to the situation. It doesn't happen everywhere all the time, but it happens way more often than it should, and it even happens in our government. I mean, AOC, I definitely think was a diversity hire because there's no fucking way that anyone like would legitimately want her for the job. Because I listening to some of the things that have come out of that woman's mouth, it's insane. It's pure volatility and hatred half the time.
Well, and I think when it comes to the victim mentality, it's important to recognize not just the definition of it, being something that attributes to that thing, but I would also remember the tendency of it attributing, setbacks or any kind of, negative event to an external force only. It's never personal. It's never able to be held accountable. And that's where someone like AOC I really struggle with because she does not hold herself accountable when she does screw up, right? She's very loud, she screams a lot and she often pulls that victim card, but the moment someone says, "Hey, that might not be correct," there's no accountability. And I think that's where the victim mentality really struggles is it it puts us into a position where, how do I put this? To me, it puts us into a position where it erodes any kind of personal agency or personal ability to take care of yourself in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
because your life goes down a spiral of everything is someone else's fault. And now nobody can hold you accountable to be better.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know what kind of work would need to be done to try to root out the victim mentality that exists these days, because people have tried giving these people facts, statistics, reason, logic, all these things, and they so desperately want to hold on to these little things that make them feel like they're special, and it's hurting them, and it's hurting the people at large.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want, do you want my opinion on like one thing I think that we all could do to start fixing it?
By all means.
Stop acknowledging them. And I know it sounds tough, but just think back a little bit to I know you're a new father, right? Correct?
Correct.
So with my 2-year old, one of the things that I've acknowledged is temper tantrums. You know, we're getting into the terrible twos.
Hmm.
And one of the things my own son has done is oftentimes when he's struggling with something, you know, he's going to fuss, and we all know kids fuss, but what he'll start doing is he'll start getting mad at it. And then he'll start blaming the object instead of what he's doing. And what I've found is that rather than acknowledging his frustration at the object, I defer him to the correct direction. And sometimes that's a hard truth, right? You know, he may not like it. He gets a little upset and he might say no, no a couple times, but then I'll let him do it. And I don't fix it for him. And I think that's where we as a society have to start looking at that is look at it in business. You know, for example, if you have an employee who's playing that victim mentality, just don't acknowledge it. Just put the numbers in front of their face and just say, you know, frankly, you need to perform, be better. I won't accept this mentality, and if it continues, you know, and your performance declines, you let them go. Um, you know, just like with a toddler, you'd say, hey, you know, I know you want to put the sand in the back of the dump truck, but you got to use the shovel to do it. You're going to have a hard time using your hands. Sure enough, after a couple hours of really struggling, they're going to pick up the shovel and learn how to use it. And I think that's what we got to do with these victims in our society is stop acknowledging their pain, stop trying to sympathize with it because it gets us nowhere, and let them figure out that it's their own behavior causing the issue on their own, or they'll continue to spiral until they hit rock bottom and they go, "Holy crap, it's always been me."
Yeah, I mean, if we look, I've watched a few debates recently where at college campuses, a black student will come up, um, and they're talking about how like America's not a good country and that it oppresses African American people. And the conversation always goes the same way. It's like how is America oppressing you? And they can never really give an answer. They talk about generational wealth and all these things, but I mean, you can get yourself out of a hole a number of different ways. One, if you perform well in school, you can go to whatever college you want. There's scholarships that'll take you all the way through. Um, a lot of people will go and get sports scholarships. They'll get uh, very physically fit and perform extremely well in whatever sport they're doing volleyball, football, basketball, soccer, whatever, right? There's also other routes you can take. One that a lot of people argue with and don't really like is the military. But besides the possibility of getting into armed conflict at just about any given point, which I think right now, despite the turmoil in the world, I think you have the lowest chance of that happening with Donald Trump in office because he absolutely fucking hates going to war. Like, he thinks it's absolutely ridiculous. CT wants to speak. We'll get him up here on the stage.
Well, and I would say, yeah, I think it's a great thing to be avoiding war, right? Like, but I also agree with Trump that when you do have to do it, you got to be aggressive. Yeah, you can't, you know, forgive my term here, but you can't pussyfoot around it.
No, you can't. You
You have to
have
be
to get in
decisive.
and out. You have to go in. You have to be surgical. You have to hit hard. You have to hit fast. You got to leave as little of the enemy infrastructure intact when it comes to like military bases and things that help produce the machines of war. Um, if you can avoid killing people, that's great in the process. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's war. It's
Mhm.
brutal. It's unforgiving. It's horrible. If we could live in a world that never needed war, that would be an amazing thing. But the
But
unfortunate reality
it's
is
just a
that'll never
world that
happen.
doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, so many people believe so ruthlessly what they believe, and other people have the opposing viewpoint. and it leads to conflict. I mean, there's people that absolutely want us to go back and finish off what we started with, like the Taliban and stuff like that. You know, get rid of wicked people and all these things. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're losing people too, and civilians do get caught in the crossfire.
Hmm.
Homes get destroyed. You know, cities, countrysides, crops. All kinds of things that don't just help the military but help the people get absolutely eviscerated.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I kind of want to go back to the victim mentality specifically, but
Yes.
one of the things, in my opinion, around the victim mentality in military is we often look at another nation and we go, well, somebody did something to them, therefore they're justified in, you know, maybe the mass killing of somebody. I'm not going to name any countries here because I don't want to get in trouble, but one of the things is we have to look at the steps that led up to conflict. We have to look at, both perspectives. A lot of times we get very single minded and we can only look at one perspective. And often, in my opinion, what comes of that is you get two diametrically opposed views and they're going to go to war with each other, just plain and simple. There's nothing you can do to stop it. But
Yeah.
if you're in another country not being affected by it, you're not a victim. And a lot of times, what I see, especially with anti war folks, which, in my opinion, I agree. I don't want war either, but I also know it's necessary. But with the anti war folks, a lot of times what you see is they'll see something happening in a country on the other side of the world and they look at it in such a way as though it's affecting them on a personal level. And we just got to get away from that because the reality of the situation is you're living fine, you're living great, you're living good. That war does not affect you in any way whatsoever. Now, if it's something that's terribly bad going on, be vocal about it, sympathize with it, but you shouldn't be putting yourself in a place of empathy with someone that likely wouldn't do it for you. And I think it's a very important thing to remember.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sitting at a Starbucks, you know, tweeting on your phone, odds are you're living a pretty good life. Why would you invite that drama and that just the negative energy that comes with that too to put your 2 cents in on another nation's issues? And then on top of that, if you do want the United States to get involved with these issues, you realize you're sending potentially thousands of Americans to go and die. I mean, it as great as the American military is, we lose people, we lose equipment. You know, things happen. It's not just one and done. We get in, we get out. I mean, when we first really got into the war in the Middle East, I mean, we were vicious. I mean, especially when I think it was the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan. They always get mixed up in my head. One was like 3 months, and then the other one was like 3 days. And in 3 days, we had literally walked down like an entire military and basically seized an entire country. But the amount of people that died in the process of that, it's insane. And people want the United States to either back one side or the other of like the current military conflicts, whether that be Russia, Ukraine, or Israel, Palestine. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on. Thousands and thousands of people will die. It's not a question about that. That is a stated fact.
Yeah, and it's just reality.
And people want to play the victim though and be like, uh, these poor people, my heart goes out to them, and I think we should be doing something about it. And then, I mean, that's not to mention financial cost of doing such things. I mean, you think military spending's high now? Wait until we actually have to mobilize people and get people going places. That's gonna cost thousands of dollars, millions, billions of dollars, um, to get a unit from one place to another, the other side of the world, in less than 24 hours. It's not easy. And then you're ripping apart families in the process of the American people, and that's before they even die. I mean,
Hmm.
being deployed is not easy. You spend months and in some cases years away from your family and your loved ones. And the toll that takes on the people is immense.
Did CTR get a chance to come on the stage?
No, I invited him to speak. I don't know if he got it though. I'll send another one to you, CT. But going back to the point that I actually brought up the military in the first place, I mean, the military, if you go into the military to get yourself a better life, odds are you'll get that. I mean, there's millions of jobs in the military. You get a steady paycheck. It's not great pay, but it's pay. You get amazing benefits. And once you're done with your 4 to 6 years, if you don't want to stay in, you can get out and talk to the VA. It's a bitch and a half to get everything done, but I mean, if you've been injured in any way or had any serious strain physically or mentally, you could get paid for the rest of your life for that. And then you also have the option to use the VA doctors and VA healthcare to help take care of you and your family for the rest of your natural born existence.
Yeah. Well, getting back to mental victim mentality, I'll share some perspectives I have on it as a business leader and as somebody who's run a business and what it does to a company. Because that's something I've seen very personally. I can't talk very well when it comes to most other things. I could talk a bit when it comes to like romantic relationships, but especially when it comes to business. And something I'll share, I made some notes to talk about specifically with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with work, there's, in my opinion, like five areas where victim mentality just really destroys businesses, and it's definitely something I've seen a lot of younger business leaders seeing. We see it a lot, specifically in the corporate world, especially with like HR. I know that seems like a funny little catch-all HR victim mentality, but it's true. And I'll just talk a little bit about it. One of my points specifically is the reduction in accountability and growth. When I had employees, I'll give you a really good example. I had one employee who, in my opinion, when he first started, he was a pretty good employee. He worked hard. What we did is a construction, so it's a very laborious job for most individuals. And what I found is over the course of this guy's about 6 months working with us, is he started out very happy, ready to get to work. And as time went on, anything that seemed challenging to him, he took as kind of an attack on his character. And I kind of noticed that pattern. And what I found is that, individuals like him with this victim mentality kind of avoided owning mistakes. They often resisted any type of feedback. So if you're trying to correct a behavior like, hey, make sure you're measuring a couple times, measure twice, cut once, common phrase in the construction industry, he would get hostile and he would act as though you're attacking him. And to me, it really hampered any type of improvement in his performance. The other thing I noticed is that individual who was causing these issues caused a lot of issues with morale and productivity with my other team members who were rock stars. Um, when you have someone who's constantly framing everything as someone else's fault, the other employees kind of feel drained. discouraged or even less inclined to collaborate, in my opinion. Like they don't even want to work with them anymore. And over time, what I found is one individual could kill 50% of my team's productivity. And my final point on this one comes kind of from a leadership and a conflict escalation situation a little bit is you get into blame language. Oftentimes they'll perceive a neutral or even a positive interaction like, hey, I loved how you did this. I'd love if it was a little bit more like this, right? That you did a great job. They'll take that as hostile. And it increases, in my opinion, miscommunication, it increases conflict. And instead of problem solving, the focus just shifts to what caused it. And I don't care what caused it in a business. I just want to fix the problem and get through it. And as a leader, that mentality, especially when you see it in other leaders, becomes especially toxic because the subordinates underneath them start feeling manipulated, they start feeling powerless, and you get into an organizational culture shift that changes to defensiveness and scapegoating, frankly. Oh, well, he did it or he did it. And no one wants that at a job. When we're working a job, we all want to work, at least in my opinion. We want to make our money and we want to go home. No one wants to listen to somebody blame shift for 4 hours as to why a window was put in out of level. We just want to fix the damn window.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it myself too. Um, Both when I worked in a more corporate job and when I worked for the state as a corrections officer. When I was working for a small time airline, not airliner, but cargo shipping company that used aircraft, um, you'd see it all the time from the customers to the airports to the pilots, like from the dispatchers. Blame was getting shifted all around to the point where you couldn't actually fix the problem. I mean, you would talk to a dispatcher, they'd give you a reason on why something didn't get done in time, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, the pilots didn't do this, so we couldn't do this," and then the pilots would be like, "Oh, well, the airport was doing this, so we couldn't do this," and then the airport would be like, "Well, your customer didn't do this, and so we couldn't do this," and then it kicked the can down the road. Like all it did was halt any progress towards solving the actual issues so that we could refine what we're doing and actually get to the root causes of things, you know? And in all reality, it was probably something the dispatcher did, and everyone else just needed a scapegoat to, you know, get things done with so they could just not get blamed, you know? It's
Mm-hmm.
it was ridiculous. In the prison system, you could look you can pull up any incarcerated person's file in that state, right? I could look at files from other prisons. I could look at all the files from everyone in the prison that I worked at. All I needed was a name or a number, right? And you would look at some of these people's. You're told not to do it, right? But at some point during your very long 12-hour shift, you're gonna get bored and you're going to want something to do and you just start looking at these files and you see what these people are charged with. And then if you got really curious, you can actually go and find the court documents about these people. I never actually went and found the court documents. I thought that was a few levels too deep. But occasionally I'd see what the prisoners I was in charge of for that day, what a couple different people's rap sheet was. And if you talk to them, like they'll bring it up themselves most of the time. They'll just come up to you and start talking about what they're charged with and how it's bullshit that they're there in the first place and they didn't do anything wrong. And they start blaming all these things, and you look at their charge, and it's like, oh, um, uh, they killed their child, or they got arrested for illegal possession of a firearm, or they got arrested for breaking and entering. And it's like, really? If you own up to your mistakes and you actually see what the fuck you did wrong, you're gonna live so much better of a life. You're gonna be so much less miserable. Just take accountability for what you've done or what you're actively doing to not fix the situation, and you'll be so much better off.
Yeah, and I'm going to get after a lot of younger men here because on that specific subject of taking accountability, take some accountability for sitting at home playing games all day and that being why you don't have any damn money. I think a lot of times we as men, we might sit down and play a game and we see that as, oh, we're doing nothing with our life. No, you're doing something with it. You're wasting it on games. Take accountability, own that, and do something different or literally do nothing. I'll tell you right now, I think one of the biggest changes I saw in one of my friends was when I told him that everything he was actively doing was something and that he needed to just stop doing anything. And you know what? He stopped playing games. He stopped doing a lot of things that were harmful. Playing games, going out to the club, doing the stupid stuff, just stopped it entirely, stayed at home, became a hermit for a couple of days, realized where his problems were in life, and started doing things different. And that is how you make change. But a lot of, comes back to the same definition of sanity. If you do something, the same thing, every single day expecting something different, you're crazy.
Yeah, and the same thing applies with politics too. If we keep trying the same tried and true methods to try to fix something that have been proven over and over and over again that they do not work and they've just caused more issues, it's just going to keep causing those issues or make them worse instead of actually fixing anything. Okay, CT stepped away for a few minutes, so we'll get him back in here when he actually comes back.
Sounds good.
The state of the world where it's at right now, where people are constantly playing the victim to try to get the way they want things to be, is it's ridiculous. I mean, I've got a list of bullet points here on how it fucks things up. If you'll give me a second to get through them. Um, One, playing the victim in any situation, it reverses the morality. When a dominant group claims to be a victim, they can reverse moral relationships, portraying marginalized groups as, aggressors and misrepresent the actual power dynamics. Um, Again, we see that in all sorts of places. Even we even have it with small groups that have gained a lot of influence and power that still act like they're the victim so they can keep gaining more power. I mean, it also delegitimizes the opposition. You know, opponents
Yeah.
are cast as malicious victimizers, which normalizes hostility towards those people. You know, it delegitimizes any argument you could have against something. I mean, you can left versus right. They're constantly pitting each other as malicious victimizers, and
Yep.
it's gotten us nowhere. It's created a bigger, deeper divide in the nation and around the world, honestly. I mean, from the sounds of it, British left and right politics are just as, if not more, fucked up than the US is, although they definitely say that they aren't.
Well, especially with the disagreements around immigration. I mean, we've seen huge, I mean, just colossal protests in the last month around immigration, specifically in the UK. And it's a lot of it comes down to the violence that's been happening as a result of it. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Hmm.
And one side's fed up with it, the other side wants more of it, I guess. And the other side that wants more of the people that cause the violence, they're in that same victim mentality of, oh well, they're coming from a place where there's war, and it's like, okay, yeah, but they need to assume to your culture. You don't change your culture for them. And that's what we're seeing. And it's turning into the same thing in the US, two massively diametrically opposed views, and they're not going to be able to exist together.
I mean, even then, we still have hotspots all over the country where a majority of like a certain city or town is said culture, you know? I mean, if you look at Miami or Louisville, those are major Cuban hotspots around the country. I mean, so much of the culture that is in those cities now reflects that of Cuban culture and Cuban American culture, you know? You got Chinatown in New York, which may be a little bit more of a stereotypical. Is it New York? No. No, I think that's on the West Coast, isn't it? Chinatown.
Chinatown. I mean, there's Chinatowns in all sorts of cities. I mean, hell, there's a Chinatown in Spokane, Washington. It may not be huge, but it's there.
Well, regardless, I mean that brings the point. I mean, Chinese immigrants all flock to this location where their culture and the way they believe and what they want to believe is more on the surface than other cultures, you know? And I'm sure there's plenty of other places. I mean, Texas is like half Mexican at this point. Fucking Texas is like fully embraced a lot of Mexican culture to the point where you get phrases like Tex-Mex, you know,
Hmm.
where it's Texan and Mexican cuisine mixed together, or Mexican cuisine that was Texified, you know.
Yeah, but I'd also remember, like, in my opinion, Texas is a state that did it right. They integrated their culture. They didn't force it to be changed. It integrated. Look at California. California's the opposite. California, they're forcing the culture. Very different ideology, in my opinion.
And I mean,
You know, we're
Californians are
that-
fucking miserable.
yeah, and that's where I think one of the big arguments, especially around that, is, oh well, we're a country of immigrants. Yeah, absolutely, we're a country of immigrants who integrated our cultures with each other. None of the cultures that came here said my way or the highway. That was never the idea. And the people that want that, they're not that. In my opinion, they're similar to a form of Zionist in a sense. Take my culture and be happy with it while I take over your land with my people.
Yeah, in certain
It
places,
may
it's
not be
definitely true.
Jewish Zionism, but it's still a form of it.
At the end of the day, I think a lot of it just breaks down to a lot of people having that victim mentality, you know? If we found a way to get the country to move away from being victims in their own world, I think we'd see a lot happier people having a lot more normal discussions about the real issues in the country versus these fake non conversations where people just talk in circles and go absolutely nowhere with it.
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask you then, because I kind of shared my opinion on where we could start, but how would you try to fix victim mentality?
um, Let me think. I'm not really sure. I think a lot of it comes with the way media and social media depict things, and unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do to change that, because then we're going to be infringing on the freedom of speech, which is absolutely unacceptable. Um, but maybe encouraging more normalized discussion instead of this hateful rhetoric that comes from each side. I mean, the other day I saw a video of AOC on Fox News, and the captions from Fox News were just, they were calling her out, but they were not very professional about it. And AOC was trying to express concern about the bill trying to be passed under Charlie Kirk's name, but
Hmm.
instead of doing any of her own research or, you know, bringing valid points to the table, she started playing the victim card for all these different minority groups and um, honestly spouting blatant misinformation about who Charlie Kirk was to begin with, calling him a racist and all these things. If we moved away from consuming media like that, they would eventually realize it's not getting anywhere with us. You know, if we started consuming more media that was either more neutral or more genuine with the information that it brought to light, we would be forcing these other companies and these other media outlets to play ball with how things should be because they would be losing money, you know? And they're going to go and study what the other groups that are making money are doing, and they're going to try to replicate that. So they'll start bringing those facts to the forefront, start being more professional about it instead of going on the news and spouting this unprofessional rhetoric about how AOC's a piece of shit or how Donald Trump's a dirty womanizer and all these things. If we stuck to the
Hmm.
facts instead of name calling and playing the victim, we would get so much further as a nation and actually making progress towards the things that need progress made towards.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can agree with that. I think starting in an area around m- media would be helpful, but I personally think we kind of got to look at it on a deeper level than just media. I think we really got to start focusing on the individual, and I think we got to do kind of some non-negotiables. You know, agency first. What's mine to own, right? Before you blame. Before you go, hey, you did this. Think to yourself, what did I do here? What part did I have in this? And then I'd also remember that compassion plus standards. Validate pain. You can sympathize with it, but the next move is action, not just talking about it. And then the other thing is doing one hard thing daily. Getting these people who are victim mentalities to do something really difficult every day without any help. I think that's a really big area to start. And if you're someone who has victim mentality and you recognize it and you want to get out of it, that'd be my biggest challenge to you. Do something hard every single day and just get used to doing it. For me, I will say I'll be the first person to say I had victim mentality. Bad. What fixed it for me? Getting up and taking a cold shower every single day. It sucks. It's not fun, but you got to do it. And it builds discipline and it builds the ability to get through tough shit. Because the reality is the world's tough. Um, and then I'd say the other thing is, start logging when someone's being a victim all the time. Document it and then put it in their face. If you've got, I'll tell this to the employers out there or even the other employees is when someone is a victim and they use that mentality, make a note of it, put it in your journal or something. And then when they keep doing it, put it in their face and say, hey, you've done this like 5 times now. This is getting old. You need to fix your shit. And that's okay. It's okay to say that. The last
Yeah.
thing I'd say though is set boundaries with people. I think that's one of our biggest struggles in our society is that, and this, in my opinion, kind of comes from the boomer generation, who, in my opinion, had no boundaries. They were kind of given everything. They came out of World War II. They had a booming economy. They had the best growth ever. Everything was literally just handed to them. And that is the truth. And if people disagree with me on it, I will die on that hill. Debate me. I ask you to. What we saw with the boomers, though, is a generation of victims that were so bad that everything had to be handed to them. Everything had to be run through the government. And because of that, they taught every generation under them that being a victim's okay. Having the government do everything for you is okay. Being safe and secure is better than being free and being of clear thought. So, what we really have to do is systemically destroy the mentality by calling it out where we see it and then putting it in people's faces and setting boundaries. By boundaries, I mean, if you keep playing this victim card with me, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And don't talk to them anymore. But the problem I see is with, especially with our generation, is the young dude will go out, someone will play the victim, and they just let them do it. Or better yet, they'll call them out on it, but then they won't do anything about it. What we've got to do is take a step back and say, I'm not going to hang with you if you're going to keep being a damn victim, and let them stew in that and realize that that mentality is why they can't be friends with people. That mentality is why they're not going to be accepted at work. That mentality is why they're not going to be listened to politically. So we just have to, I mean, as a whole, as a community, as a country, just stop acknowledging these people. Let them cease insufferable. Like they hate their lives, let them hate their lives. And let them realize that it's them who has to fix it. And stop fixing it for them and set boundaries. I'm not going to talk to you if you're going to be that way with me.
Yeah. I can definitely see that being something that definitely helps people move in the right direction. The biggest takeaway is just be comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, that's one of the hardest lessons you can learn in your life. Especially us guys that sit here and we play video games all day and we don't really go out and do anything but go to work, come home, play video games, chat with our friends all the time. You build a
Yeah, that's
sense
a
of
super
safety.
comfortable life.
Oh yeah, but you have to
I
be
can't
able
tell
to
you how many
remove yourself
guys
away
I've
from
hurt.
it.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're fine.
My apologies. Um, but yeah, I fully agree. Like, and you have to look at it that way. It's like that is a comfortable life, and a lot of guys look at it like, oh, my life is so hard. My job is so hard. I come home from work and I play 4 hours of video games. That is a comfortable life. Like, there are guys I know who, they've got 4 or 5 kids. They come home, their house is just a wreck. They're trying to fix things because they can't afford a nice home, so they had to buy the old 1920s house that's falling apart. Like, there's some guys I know who literally do not stop working except maybe Sunday when they go to church. That is hard. That's a hard life. That's an uncomfortable life. So when I hear guys my age go, "Oh, my life's so hard. I work a 9 to 5, and I have to come home, and my wife is grumpy because I got to do dishes." Like, shut the fuck up. I was there. I was that guy. I'm telling you right now, your life does suck. You got to get out of the mentality.
Yeah.
Once you get out of that and you become comfortable with just doing the stuff that's boring and sucks, your life just gets so much better. And then the things that are fun, like when you do get to play your game for a couple hours, it's so much more fun when you do. It is. Like I know a lot of guys are like, "Oh, I'm bored of all my games. Like games are boring to me now." Yeah, because you play them too much. Go do something uncomfortable and then relax for an hour and play it. I guarantee you that game will feel 1,000 times better.
Yeah. I think that's why Call of Duty is still so popular. Is you get the normal guys who, blue collar workers who only get to really play on like the weekends or something. You know, they're out there busting their asses all week, and then taking care of their families, and then on the weekend they get a few hours to sit down and play a game. You know, and fucking Call of
Yeah.
Duty is one of the main games they know, and as far as they care, it's the same shit, different game, so they're still happy with it. Even though everyone else that's a gamer and plays games all the time and doesn't really do much else, they hop on Call of Duty and they're like, "Oh, this shit sucks." I mean, I don't disagree. I think all the new COD games are trash, but that's not really why we're here.
Yeah.
But those guys that work, even the women too, the guys and the women, they work all the time, and they're taking care of their household and they've got their family there. I guarantee you, despite their life seeming so much harder than everyone else's, they're probably the happiest motherfuckers you know.
Yeah. And they're probably the dudes who are enjoying playing the game with you the most, that are laughing the most, that are having the most fun, even when they're getting tore up. Because to them, it's a game. It's fun. It's not real life.
Yeah.
A lot of us younger men have kind of turned games into real life. They spend more time in that than in the outside world.
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason you see such an influx too, and uh, streamers and such, because well, they just want to sit there and play video games all the time and try to keep having that dopamine rush of playing with their friends or playing a game they like and doing really good at it. And that's why you see them rage so hard when they don't do it, because that's all they have. They don't have much else that makes them super happy, and they don't really get out in the world and do a lot. They just play video games. Not to say video games are like the cause of issues or anything like that by
No,
any
no,
means.
not at all.
I mean, I love
But
playing
everything
video
in
games,
moderation.
but exactly, exactly. It's like exercise. If you exercise every single day for 8 hours a day, that's not good for your body, man. But there's people out there that do that, and yeah, they look ripped and swole. But are those people really happy, or do they just like looking in the mirror and seeing something pretty?
Yeah. And I think that's a totally okay question to ask.
I'd love to have someone who's absolutely ripped that does that, works 8 hours a day at the gym, just benching, lifting weights, doing all that stuff. Come here and tell me how their life actually is. And if they're genuinely happy, that's great. More power to them. Keep doing what you're doing. But moderation is the biggest thing. That's why you see studies that tell you like working out 3 to 4 times a week for 1 to 2 hours is probably the best balance you can get, instead of treating the gym like a full-time job and looking like an Olympian athlete or like a fucking Greek god. Anyways, I think we should maybe wrap this up. We'll get CT up here for any comments and questions.